Hey gang, we are in Hamilton, Texas. Just got out of the ice storm. It's February 2nd, Thursday, and now the roads are wet and we are on the move again. And I'm here to do a story that I've been chomping at the bit to do for a long time. Probably on the southern trip, this is my number one story that I want to do here in Hamilton. And there's a guy here that claims that he was Billy the Kid. So on this icy day, we're going to give you some icy cold facts on this charade. What's going on here? Let's go to the cemetery. We'll visit. We'll see what happens there, and I'll tell you the story. I'm going to give you some facts. Okay, so here we are at Oakwood Cemetery in Hamilton, Texas. And we're here to talk about and see the grave of Billy the Kid. Henry McCarty, William H. Bonney, Kid Antrim, all the aliases. He's buried here, they say. I don't know, but we're going to talk about it. Now, before we walk to this grave or this monument, I want to give you a little background on the Billy the Kid story. We're not going to get way into the story. I mean, there's probably hundreds of YouTubes tell the story better than I on Billy the Kid. But for those of you who don't know, I'll just give you the general story because it's important, because there's a continuation to this story that's going to be crucial here. Born in New York, in the slums, he's got a brother, mom and dad, Patrick, Henry McCarty, and dad dies. Mom and two sons end up going to Indianapolis. That's where mom meets a man named Antrim. That's where you get Kid Antrim, AKA, from. And from Indianapolis, the little family moves to Wichita, and that's where mom gets consumption, tuberculosis. She dies, and now Antrim, old man Antrim's like, get out of here, Boots. If Billy is 15 years old, boots him out of the house. So Billy gets into trouble there. He's stealing stuff, and he tries to move back in with Antrim, and Antrim's like, no way. So he steals his guns, steals his clothes, and drifts out of there. So he's a tornado of stealing and destruction. Makes his way to Arizona with Henry Hooker, the famous Henry Hooker, cattle baron. Southeastern Arizona, he's working as a hand, gets into trouble with a guy named Windy Cahill, who's a bully. Now, Billy the Kid's the scrawny, bucktooth, droopy shoulder, the kid you want to pick on, but he's not taking any bunk from anyone. So, as with some of the others like Luke Short or Doc Holliday, you don't pick on those little guys, and they've got big attitudes to make up for it. So he ended up, getting thrown to the floor by this guy. Billy kills him, and with all the friends that, even though he's in the right with all the friends, Billy's got to get out of town. So he drifts out of there, and he's in New Mexico, and he's in Arizona, and where the story really hits home here is he ends up in a place called Lincoln, New Mexico, Lincoln County. This would be the site of the Lincoln County Wars, which he was part of. A man from England, John Tunstall, rich family, wanted to raise cattle, come to America, had this cowboy dream, and have a dry goods store, and he did. He went to Lincoln, but the problem was there was already a monopoly there, Murphy Dolan. They're like, who's this guy from England? Now they got the sheriff bought off, they got everybody bought off, so skipping ahead, it finally comes to a head. Their gang ambushes John Tunstall, who got away from his hands on the trail, and they flat out murdered him. They killed him. Now, Billy, in retribution, he's working for John Tunstall, they all band together and they say, we're going to call ourselves the regulators to make it all legal, and we're going to get retribution. We're going to kill those SOBs. And they do. They go into town, and the first one, they go after Sheriff Brady, and they just flat out ambush him, shoot him down in the streets of Lincoln, witnesses everything, and now he's on the run. He ends up getting chased by a guy named the famous Pat Garrett, tall, lanky, handsome, mustache. And Pat Garrett is chasing Billy down and the gang, and he's picking gang members off who he thinks are Billy. Tom Folliard, and it's not Tom O. Folliard, it's Tom Folliard, middle name O. Thinks it's Billy. He shoots, ambushes him. Oh, that's not Billy. Okay, next. Finally corners these guys at a place called Stinking Springs. They're in this little stone hut, and then they've got them surrounded. They're waiting, and one of the other guys, pal of Billy, comes out, Charlie Beaudry, to feed his horse. He got a big old sombrero on. Maybe it's Billy's, because Billy always wears that. And Pat Garrett's like, oh, I got Billy. Bam. Kills Charlie, and it's like, oh, it's not Billy. Well, they ended up getting Billy, long standoff, to bring him back to Lincoln County, and they put him in shackles on the floor of the jail, which is the upper floor of the courthouse. Big building still there, as it was. And we've got this deputy under Pat Garrett named Bob Ollinger, and he is another bully. And he's a big strapping guy, and he's got his engraved fancy new shotgun he's all proud of, and he's poking Billy with it, and he says, you're gonna hang, and he's just prodding him. And Billy's just biding his time. So Bob Ollinger one day goes across the street to get something to eat, and he leaves Deputy Bell in charge, and Billy's got to go to the bathroom, go to the outhouse, and they are coming out of the outhouse. They're going up the stairs. At the top of the stairs inside, either Billy got Bell's gun or there was a gun hidden in the outhouse, but either way, he kills Bell. And he gets out of those, eventually got out of the cuffs. I think with the cuffs, he got Ollinger's shotgun. That was the first thing he got. Runs to the front window, and here comes, Bob Ollinger. Here's the shot, and he's looking up, and there's the barrels pointed right at him. And there's Billy looking down going, hello, Bob, and just cuts him in half practically. So now Billy's on the run, and Pat Garrett's got to go back after him. And to make a long story short, he is hiding out in Fort Sumner, New Mexico, at his friend's Pete Maxwell's hacienda. Maybe he was there for Pete's sister, the senorita, or another senorita, but he's there. Pat Garrett gets the word. They go in the middle of the night, and they're in Pete Maxwell's room. Where's Billy? In the dark. But just then, Billy walks in. Just shadows. Who's there? Who's there? He says in Spanish, and Pat Garrett recognizes the voice, and bam, 2 shots, one to the heart. Billy's dead. Dead and buried. Buried in Fort Sumner, New Mexico, where they say he is buried today. Is he buried there? We don't know, but there were 48 witnesses who saw Billy's body. Hard to dispute, but there is a man here who is buried in this cemetery that says he is Billy the Kid. So let's take a walk, and as we walk, I want to digress for a second. I want to digress, and there's a reason that I want to digress, because we've seen this before. People claiming to be somebody that they are not. Okay? Have you ever heard of the Romanovs in Russia? The Tsar. The Tsar's family was killed, murdered when the Bolsheviks, Lenin, the revolution, they were in the room, and the guards came and just shot them all to pieces. The girls, all the sisters, little Alexei. But there was a woman named Anna Anderson who came forward many years later who said, I am Anastasia, one of the sisters. And she went on with this charade for years. And everyone wondered, could this be Anastasia? And this is key to the story. And the key part of the story here, she even had the ancestors, the descendants of the Romanovs, believing, because they had fled and lived before, unlike the Tsar, he should have. Well, he tried. But anyway, that's another story. They even believed that she could be Anastasia. She was Anastasia. And this is the key to the story, is they wanted to believe. They wanted so bad to believe that they believed. And that's what I'm talking about here. That's what we're going to talk about here. People want to just believe. I mean, there was a guy who impersonated Jesse James, right? Jesse James was killed, we all know. But there was a guy named Frank Dalton who said that he was Jesse James, John Frank Dalton. So we have a guy here whose name in 1950, his name is Oliver Roberts. He lived here, who is supposedly buried here. And we'll talk about that too. And he said, I'm Billy the Kid. I'm Billy the Kid. So you have to start to wonder. Now, I've got some arguments why this is an absolute BS story and this guy is not Billy the Kid, and we are going to talk about it. And I am just going to bring up, I'm going to call it 5 strikes, okay? 5 strikes. There's a lot of other strikes on this story, but the first one is, it's kind of interesting that 1943, Howard Hughes directed a movie called The Outlaw, and Walter Noble Burns, you know, in those years before that, wrote a book on Billy the Kid, so Billy the Kid was already very famous, infamous. And in the movie, you know, it's with Doc Holliday, it's with Pat Garrett, and they're all buddies, and it's all bullshit. But in the end, or in the movie, Billy does not get killed. He survives, and he also ends up meeting a Mexican woman. I think it was Doc Holliday's girlfriend or something. And to survive, she helps him survive. She nurses him back. She even cuddles with him. And he goes on to live his life. So what are we saying? 1943 and all these books, 1950, 7 years later. I'm picturing this guy, Oliver Roberts, here in Hamilton, sitting by his fireplace, reading these stories, or maybe he went out to the movies, maybe he heard about it, and he's like, hey, I could be Billy the Kid. And the thing about the whole Howard Hughes directed movie, The Outlaw, is that this Oliver Roberts here used the same story about, you know, he said his story basically was, yeah, Pat Garrett, Fort Sumner, but there was a big shootout. I was with my gang. My friend Billy, he was actually killed. Billy Boyers, I can't remember. He was actually killed. And I got away. I was shot 3 times. But a Mexican woman, she pulled me in from the porch into her house, and she reloaded my gun. Oh, little coincidental. How did he come up with that? How did he come up with that? Well, you have to ask yourself. But there's much stronger strikes we're going to talk about. Another little strike of the many is that when he came out and he said, I'm the Kid, and there was a book written about him. I think it was called Alias Billy the Kid, but he said the Lincoln County War was 3 days. 3 days. Lincoln County War was 5 days. Like, don't you think you would remember that? Now, I have to tell you that there is a YouTube channel, and the information I'm going to tell you now, we're going to really get into the deep dive on this story, is there's a guy named Michael Anthony Giudici. He has a channel called All Things Billy the Kid. And he calls himself an enthusiast, but I would say he's an expert. He's like an expert. And the things I'm about to tell you, I listened to him, and it's compelling. Now let me just start off by saying Billy the Kid, the photograph, has provenance from Pat Garrett himself. I mean, that picture was bought, the tintype, by William Koch for $2.3 million. That's Billy the Kid. And in tintypes, they're backwards. Now, before 1953, 54, you're looking at it, you say Billy the Kid is a lefty, because that's where his pistol is, you know, his holster, and he's a lefty. So that's what Brushy Bill here, that's what they call him, Brushy Bill. He's a lefty. I'm a lefty. I was a natural lefty all my life. But if you look at the tintype photo, and then you look at it and you know that tintypes have to be reversed 180, you know, reversed like a mirror to see what it was really like there, because it's really a backwards image, then you would know that Billy the Kid is really a righty. But Brushy Bill, he was going off the picture. I wonder if he lived later, if he would have said, well, you know, I was just fooling around that day. This is what Michael Anthony says. I'm just fooling around that day. I was having fun with the photographer, and I was kind of being, you know, pretending to be a righty, but I was really a lefty, or something like that. So the final, and I think most compelling argument, and this is science, that there's no way this Brushy Bill Oliver Roberts is Billy the Kid, is the fact that his earlobes are different. Now, earlobes, everybody, I didn't know this until I watched Michael's segment on this. By the way, I'll put the link below this stuff. You can check it out if you want to get the deep dive. Our earlobes are all, you know, from birth, they're like fingerprints. Now, I think you can see here, I have a detached earlobe. Not that you want to look in my ear, but see how it comes down? That's always been that way since I was born. And if you look at Billy the Kid, he's got detached earlobes. Very clear. And then if you look at the picture of Brushy Bill, they're attached. Now, this is medical science. You can look it up. This is absolute medical science. So there's no way that this man at this cemetery that grew up here, or didn't grow up here, lived here, is Billy the Kid. Unless that picture of Billy the Kid's not Billy the Kid, and just some cowpunk, which I don't think it is. So if that's the picture of Billy the Kid, this ain't, Brushy Bill is not Billy the Kid. So here it is, right up front, right by the road, right where everybody can see it, is this fancy monument with all kinds of things here for William Henry Roberts, Brushy Bill, aka Billy the Kid. Got a lariat, got some fancy stuff. We got some playing cards. Very, very nice. I gotta tell you something. This infuriates me. It infuriates me as the truck goes by. Yeah, we're right by the road here, so everybody, all the truckers can see this. It's just a tourist thing. They probably make money here. This, as Michael says, is like stolen valor. And there is nothing worse than people who try to rewrite history. And all those here in Hamilton that support this charade are sickening. Okay? It's like the military, stolen valor. It's Texas versus New Mexico. I love Texas, guys. But Texas should not be trying to rewrite history. You shouldn't be trying to steal the story. It's not right. It ain't right. And you know what? He's not even buried here. This is just a monument. This is another charade. I mean, they say he's here somewhere. They say he's buried here somewhere, but that's fake. Just like Oliver Roberts is a fake, was a fake, in my humble opinion. All right, I set that straight. I'm leaving here. See you later.